So before we start, a small connection between shared tides and how textiles are an important cultural ties for anything we talk about, right? Because whenever we speak about two different places or two different communities, two different geographical locations, we try to always point out differences, right? But there are so many cultural connections which can be made not just with larger things which we think, but also the daily household objects. It can be with how we drape our sari, it can be with how we do certain things, how we use certain words. So in that case, it's a honor to share stage with Bessie ma'am today to talk about the textile connections. So to start with, about generally I'm not someone with papers, but when you talk with a textile expert, I think I need my keywords too. So weaving and also painting practices and how the connection between Sri Lanka and here.
Okay, good evening everyone. I cannot be very formal and I have an issue with throat. I might be coughing in between, so kindly bear with me. And I cannot give a very direct answer to a question. Is it okay if it is a bit of narrative how I learned? Yeah?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So the Sri Lankan, I come from Kanyakumari, and that is a neighboring island for us. And all my life when I grew up, we have relatives, who has hopped the ocean, stayed there, and come back, and that connection is very strong. And then I was staying in a hostel where I had a roommate, Sri Lankan, Punguleli, her name is, and all she tells is Visarappa Neer. Every time she tells something, are you mad? That is one thing she keeps telling, and it's beautiful. The connection, somewhere it started there. And how it came to the subject is, when I did my post, sometimes as a researcher, you wanted an answer, meaning you already have an answer and you wanted that result. And it never happens that way. And for me also, yes, I had an answer and I wanted to find out that answer or evidence for that answer. But it never happened that way. It was in Singapore when I was doing my postdoctoral fellowship. There was a whole lot of, it was a study on textiles that were traded from Coromandel Coast to Southeast Asia. I have a strepsils in my mouth. So now the Coromandel Coast, in fact, covers even the northern part of Sri Lanka, because the practice, what happened in this coast, meaning from south of Orissa, today's boundary I'm talking, south of Orissa to north of Sri Lanka. However, Tuticorin and Kanyakumari doesn't come into this category, it just goes off like that. This map is far apart. So when we have the map, you can see that when you, I mean, everybody knows about it, but you'll see it. And that is when this research was about textiles that were traded from Coromandel Coast to Southeast Asia. And the collection, when I was studying, one thing came up was painted textile from Sri Lanka. So now I'm very upset, because for me, painted textiles that were traded, or the popular chins, meaning, let me stick to the word, I won't use the word kalamkari, I'll use, for a conscious reason, I'll never use it. I'll say painted textiles that were traded to Southeast Asia or Europe or anywhere. Majorly, I was under the impression it was always done in Coromandel Coast. When the minute that word Sri Lanka popped up, it is not a good, you feel, where did I go wrong? Why I didn't know? So that was my first introduction. Now I know, okay, painted textiles was done in Sri Lanka. Then I later come back, after that, I come back to India. And these textiles are also majorly red and blue. And I did extensive research on the red, because blue dye, everybody has heard of the word indigo. And everybody, I mean, at least most of us know indigo, and indigo comes from the plant, and it is a living practice. Whereas this red is fascinating, was very fascinating for me. I thought, why not focus on this? And I started working on the red dye, that also plant based. Now this is completely gone. This is not practiced anymore. Podrangla?
போடுறாங்க மேம்.
This red dye is not, we have lost this craft. And coming here to India, there was one conference. Actually, I was researching extensively, and I continue to research on this particular red dye. And this red dye comes from a plant called Oldenlandia ambulata. It's a botanical name. The colloquial name is chayavere. Chaya means any plant that gives the stains, they immediately call chayam, and apparently this is also called as chayavere. Can we go to the next slide?
Two minutes.
Everything was called, anything that stains, whichever color, but it was called chayam, and this plant itself came to be called as chayavere. In fact, when the Portuguese came in the early 16th century to Sri Lanka, already they were extensively working on this cherry root, and that was called, the king was called as Chaya Raja. Okay, and this is the red I am talking about, and this is a temple hanging. Apparently, I have a strong feeling this was done in Sri Lanka for the very reason this is completely red. There are other reasons also which I am trying to say. You see, blue was extensively cultivated, the plant was cultivated, the dye was extracted, we practiced here. But in Sri Lanka, I could not find the evidence. See, I have to acknowledge one more thing. My connection or the research, so far it was a hypothesis or a theory that was running in my mind. And that's exactly I'm presenting here. It's not a complete research that is, which I've already done and I'm presenting. No. In fact, I can say this is a beginning. I'm voicing out all I have learnt so far in this, forum today. And this is the red. Sorry, it's supposed to be a question answer session.
No, please.
I'm just going on. And what it is said, even the cotton, majorly it was woven and it was sent to Sri Lanka for painting. And this is a kind of red. Can we go to the next slide? Next slide. This is painted. Here also you see it's more of red. And I have a feeling, what I saw in the Singapore Museum also, it was more of red. The blue was not there. So I have a feeling Sri Lanka majorly focused on the red. So what happened is, I come after my postdoctoral, I come here, curate an exhibition. One day I get a call, and from an American scholar, Mark Bamforth, and he was researching on the colonial education system in Sri Lanka, particularly in the northern Sri Lanka, Jaffna area. And he found out in his research one particular community. According to him, what he spoke to me, this is from his research, Mark Bamforth. He did his PhD in Columbia. Now he works in McGill University as a visiting faculty, Canada. And he is a Fulbright scholar currently. And I think he'll be coming somewhere next year again. And this is from his research. And he contacts me, he says, and when he was going through his research document, he came across one particular community didn't have the luxury of education, where everybody in Sri Lanka, according to him, in his words, there's no slavery, but here this particular community didn't have the luxury of moving out, and they were closely guarded. And when I went understanding this, he said, I came to understand they were called Verkutti. Verkutti means root diggers. Apparently, the red dye comes from the root bark. Okay, can we go to the next slide? Next slide, I think.
Third slide.
Next. Yeah. This is a plant. You will see this is a very wild plant. It grows everywhere with 4 petals, white small petals. And the root goes as deep as 2 meters. And the bark gives the red. And this was documented by William Roxburgh in it's not 1975, it is 1795. My bad. I was so sleepy, I think, today when I read 1795. he documented, and at the same time, and and he said these, these people were called root diggers. Root diggers means a community that were engaged only in digging the roots, and they were safely, they were not let out. It was too laborious and it was difficult to find these laborers because they had to have a knack of digging up the root. And he told, what is chai ware? His question was, what is this dye? Why these people were employed for this particular work? And this was exactly 10 years back this conversation happened. When he came, met me, and we went around, looked for a plant. I showed then. He went to Sri Lanka and he found a very senior person who was from that community, took him to the place and they dug up, and there is a photograph which was published here in Chennai also, I think in one of Hindu or something, when he came and did the presentation. And as deep as, that much the photograph goes and the root is there, and that is the kind of, what do you say, the secrecy or precious, even in Sri Lanka, meaning when I say even in Sri Lanka, where there is no slavery or no history of slavery, like here, they were protected and they were not given or they didn't have the privilege of many, even for education or moving around, they didn't have. And as for the question weaving, so this is the weaving, these are painted textiles. Weaving, majority of the time the cotton was woven here and it was sent there for painting. And one John Guy, can we go to the next photograph?
Next.
Yeah. The textile, which is the gentleman, the chief, what he is draped. When I was there in Victorian Albert Museum doing a research, one Dr. Stephen Cohen, can we go to the next slide?
Next.
He came, and in his book, The Woven Cargoes, he has published a photograph where all the chieftains will be wearing a dress like this. Yeah, this is something like this. And he told, Bessie, I have a feeling this is woven in Tamil Nadu. And however, because this is in connection with my research, what I was doing, a woven Tharupur textile. So he had a very strong thing saying this was woven in Tamil Nadu and it was sent there. However, I didn't research on that, and that bit of information is from, and this is the textile he showed me. That was his private collection, and that is a photograph which I pulled out from the internet. Everywhere, in everything I would have acknowledged, so you can have the source, you can go back and refer also. Yeah, I think I answered and I deviated.
No. I wanted to start with that particular question of weaving and painting connection, because whenever we talk about textiles, right, I would like to mention that when we entered the room, the first thing I think ma'am pointed out was we are not this far. Geographically, Sri Lanka and Tamil Nadu is not this far. The geographical proximity led to a lot of possibilities, led to a lot of collaborations and connections. So through these examples in weaving and painting, it was not just made in one place and came back as a finished product. It was like weaved and then went back and then came back. So I think what we should understand is the geographical proximity and the language connection also. Like lot of words which ma'am used, like the chaya veru, or the other word I think I missed, chaya veru, and also the veer edukravanga per enna sonunga, veer kutti. If you are not aware of the language, if you read it in another language, I don't think the same meanings connected. So like while I was reading somewhere, it said that if you go to this part of India, your language would be more understood than if you go this side of it from Tamil Nadu. So I think that is the connection, and that's why I wanted to start about paintings, ma'am. So the next part is about the lace. Wherever we search about textile connections between Sri Lanka and India, illa Sri Lanka and Tamil Nadu nu paakrappo nariya lace patti irukum. So specifically the bobbin lace. So about the connections and also what do we share in terms of the bobbin lace.
And before going to that, I wanted to say language. See, yes. Apparently, whatever textile that was painted there came back here most of the time and it was traded from here. It had different names. And we never documented the name of the tools. So this was for my own research, meaning everything is somewhere connected, but the Kodalika report, what I was researching, I wanted to know what is the name of the tool. And it is beautiful. In Sri Lankan journal, it is documented as Meligelithu, meaning wax resist. Neer elithu, meaning dyeing, writing with dye. I don't know how many of you all, at least if you cannot speak Tamil here. And Melige means wax. Elithu means write. In Tamil, we say Chittiram elithudal, writing a painting, write a painting. That is the word we use. And neer elithu means you see the consistency of the dye. I don't know how many of you all have seen when they work. I have to use this popular term so you all understand. Kalamkari. I don't know if you have seen the dye. That consistency of the dye is watery. So, literally neer elithu. It is beautiful and we have lost that term here in Tamil Nadu. And it is not recorded also. But in Sri Lanka, they have very beautifully recorded neer elithu, Meligelithu. The pen's name is Irumbuthurai, Irumbuturigai, and one more name also.
Vattal Turigai, which is like a semicircle, is a Vattal Turigai. So different names.
Irumbuna for batik. No, batik, I don't know. When you use for the wax, you need to have basically this needle is pen. It's a stick with human hair, then with wool, and then the thread, and the nib is two tiny metal piece, like a very country made nib, so that the wax, molten wax, the hair will not melt. It will retain the, what do you say? It can, yes, and not the wool. Actually, they put the cotton because wool also it will felt, and and there will be flow slightly when they press. You can control the flow by pressing and the pressure, how much of pressure you could give, and that is why it's called that Irumbuturigai. So yeah, that is beautiful. So your question, next question was what?
The bobbin
the bobbin lace. Bobbin lace is very interesting. Again, one of the exhibitions. Yes, I come from. My grandmother was the first lace designer. And for people who doesn't know bobbin lace, it is a pillow kind of a thing where they have many sticks and tied to thread, and I thought I should bring it, it slipped off my mind. And they kind of knot it. They knot it and they have a pattern made of parchment those days, and these days they use a cardboard, and there will be many pins. I think the next photograph we can see, and it's an old photograph. Yeah. It will be like this. So they keep changing and that's how they do it. And my connection with this bobbin lace is my grandmother. I grew up seeing her doing this work. And why the Sri Lanka connection came again was when one of the exhibition about kabaya, the Malaysian the costume, and they have the trimmings that they use, and they are bobbin lace. And I was trying to ask where it is made, and they told we don't think so it is made here. I haven't done the research on that. So my mind was maybe it came from Kanyakumari district. But I was wrong. Maybe it could have been from Sri Lanka also, or it could have been done in Malaysia also, God knows. But I grew up knowing this, and recently there was a paper they had published, the Tamil missionaries and shared culture between Sri Lanka and here. And I thought maybe I should do a paper on the lace. And I started researching. Very interestingly, the south of Sri Lanka, they say that gully area, if I am pronouncing wrong, bear with me, where the Portuguese came and settled, and they say it was brought in by them. And if you go back to the history of Portugal, there only in the mid 16th the craft came in. So mid 16th, yeah, it came to them, and after that somewhere at a later period, probably at a very early period, it would have come to Sri Lanka. Whereas there is no literature evidence to it, but this I was trying, because see, sometimes we cannot take the local narrative for granted. And here the local narrative is very strong in Sri Lanka, the south of Sri Lanka. The lace came from, was brought in by the Portuguese people. Whereas in the north of Sri Lanka, you have literature evidence from 1830s stating that a missionary took the lace and introduced in the schools, and a little bit of more income for the girls, and it was made mandatory in schools. Here also you see, though it was introduced in Kanyakumari, that is south of India, at a later point, by end of the 19th century, in many schools across the country it was made mandatory, but it didn't live long. But even today in Kanyakumari it lives, and in Sri Lanka also it is a living practice. And in Portugal they have a beautiful museum. I haven't been there, but when I was researching, there are statues that are made because it brought in livelihood for many people, and they really acknowledge the craft and appreciate the craft, and same is still seen in Sri Lanka. It's a continuing research. I don't have more information on this. And this is a very, in both the places, in Kanyakumari it was buying the freedom, whereas in Sri Lanka it gave an upliftment for, in their livelihood. Yeah.
Yes. The bobbin race connect, first time when I heard from ma'am, she mentioned it in two ways, that with education there were also so many other things which were introduced, which was not necessarily only artistic. For some communities it gave upliftment, for some communities it gave them strength, for some it gave that economic freedom that they can earn their own money as well. So thank you ma'am, thanks for sharing about that. So when we started, we spoke about the red dye and the lace, and the third thing which always we try to connect was the draping, the different kinds of draping we have there, and then the draping we have here, and also the different color choices. So going back to the earlier slides which you had ma'am about colors, the indigo, the colors, and then the red ones and the yellow. The words நீங்க சொன்னீங்க இல்லையா கலம்கரிக்கு, and you would have noticed that for the first half of the conversation, I think ma'am didn't use the word kalamkari at all, because she said that the word neereluthu is far more apt, far more rooted, far more geographically spread, and it talks about the specific technique, and still we tend to use the other different connections. So how much do you think is the words and vocabularies, and what could be the learnings ma'am, now that a new window for a research is opening up? What do you think could be a shared learning?
Honestly, I don't have an answer for this question.
You do have to.
Yes. And draping style, yes, I don't go deep into the draping or the fashion aspect of it. But since the one of the slides you have the chief with his women, folks. In Nagarkoil, at least where I grew up, my grandmothers, they used to drape the style drape the sari this way, and the blouse also, very loose, and it will be always white and maximum, and a bit elite people, you will see the hakoba work in it, and usually it is always white, and they wear it with all the sari. And one of the thing is the bobbin lace. She told economical upliftment for us. Where I grew up in Kanyakumari, it was more than economical, it was the freedom that we were able to buy. I come from the same community where I think when so much talk about we spreading culture, but what we learnt and what we got out of it, I would say the missionaries coming to the south, the state of Travancore then, and picking up the children and literally bribing them to come in, attend the class, and upper garment was not allowed, and they designed a very loose jacket which was called kupayam. I have mentioned in my earlier talks also, which is typically very loose, a kupayam, and today also we use the word kupayam meaning a loose, any dress which is very loose. What are you wearing? A kupayam, it's like a kupayam. So that is one thing. And how these children were bonded laborers, and they earned a little bit of money out of this craft, where the missionaries helped selling them amongst their own people, and they were in turn able to buy the freedom. So it is, for some community, it's more than a economical upliftment, it's more of a liberty. So we got our education, we got a freedom, and I think today if I'm here, there is a textile connection, yeah. And yeah, I'm sorry I don't have much about the draping style, and I think as for the research, it can take any turn. Everybody has a different perspective, and we cannot, I don't know, when I started as a designer, and I never knew, and I had all my life, I had my stage fear to come and talk. Even today, anytime when I get on this side, that fear is there. What am I going to talk, and how are we going to talk? I never thought I'll be here. I think how most of the time it's the journey that takes you, the path unfolds in itself. And I think it should be that, then we will find whatever research. I think then it is more of exploration, more of enjoyment. And for me, I think if this research if this has not happened in my life, I don't think so I would, maybe I'll be a living dead, yeah. So this gives me a lot of, it keeps my mind completely occupied. When I lie down, some connection we are able to try and, do things, yeah.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. I think we are right on schedule, and thank you, ma'am.
I thank you, most welcome. Yes, I want to show one slide. Can you just go back? The painted textile, yeah. Here,
next
this
one.
Yeah, adukku munnadi ponga, that's a bigger one. These are really huge, and this was done in Tamil Nadu. Can you go to the next slide? No, not this one, the previous. Yeah. This was done for I am not able to pronounce. Yeah, can you read?
Which one, ma'am?
The coat
of arms in the center and the corner of the shid's bed cover or hanging is that of J.C. Okay, an official of the Dutch East India Company who returned to Holland from service in Sri Lanka in 1734. As is common with the heraldic devices, there is a pun on name, pahid or foot. The cranes at the top and the bottom of the field and in the center are derived from Japanese motifs.
Yeah, this is there, and this was done in Sri Lanka, Tamil Nadu. A person who was residing there, and right now it is there at the Victoria and Albert Museum. Yeah, this you see more of blue and the red only, and the white area within the red is done with the wax resist. What we today call it as batik. And batik is not a word, our word is meligelithu, and we lost it to Indonesia because they always wanted that major trade was happening on this, and it became for them mandatory that the technique was so important for them too. They mastered the craft, craftspeople went settled there, and today they are known to the world as the master craftspeople, and we have completely lost it. And even in Sri Lanka we lost it.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Should we take some questions?
Yes, sure.
If there are any questions, please. Yes.
I have a question. Maybe it's a very naive question, but you talked about the past and change and today, in terms of
I think major export companies, when duty free, what there is a code. If you export from Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, so basically the export companies are only using them majorly.
So Indian export companies
Indian
are using
yeah.
Sri Lankan craftspeople.
Yeah, Indian craft people. I don't know currently, but this was, I think it must be happening now also. And handloom, I think one or two people are trying to reintroduce, otherwise not much, yeah. And one of the thing, a conversation with Professor Akhilan, I had a friend who asked me, what do you think, those days the ships were of, massive sailcloth. No, we didn't have the high powered engines. So sailcloth was the one that took the ships from one place to other. What material it would have been? It was a very good question, and I asked one of the professor because from Sri Lanka, and I told if you could get some material on that, it will be nice. And he told me, there is a ship named Annapurni. You just check that, and it's Annapurni. Annapurni, and you check on that, and it's very interesting to know. Literally they hopped from this end to that end. The construction of the ship was done by was funded by the Chettiars, and I think ship was purchased by someone there, and it sailed all the way. I think by the time it went from the north Sri Lanka, from Tamil Nadu to Sri Lanka to the south, it changed name. The ownership changed, and it is said it went to America. And the sailcloth is a very interesting thing because it has to be cotton. It cannot be anything else. And what is the process that has gone into it? Because shipbuilding was happening in both the places, and that is one area I think it's worth really researching. And what is the coating they would have given to withstand the salt water if it has to cross? At least I found one information that we did weave the sailcloth, and this record I found it in a book published in 1867, The Textile Manufacturers of India, by Forbes Watson, and in the volume he mentions that. Yeah.
Yes. Any other questions?
Ma'am, I have a comment to add. Actually, during this residency period, I was trying to trace the Indian resettlements in Jaffna. So, relating to your research, I have information which I have taken down as notes. So, there's a particular community, weavers community, that settled in Jaffna near Nadu. That's called Vanna Pannai. So, Vanna Pannai is the people who die and also.
Can
So, that was
முன்னாடிக்கு முன்னாடி image கேக்குறாங்க.
1977 when the Malayalam Tamil people initial riots happened, they resettled in Vanni, and some people settled in Jaffna and around the Jaffna area. So in this Nallur place, there's a particular community called the Kaikola community. So they are the weavers community, and they are settled near the Venkatesa Varadaraja Kovil in Nallur. And there's also another community called the Chennian community. That's also a weavers community. So I just wanted to tell you, if you can trace through that, maybe you will get a chance to know about this Devuti community.
Actually, but thank you for the information. Can you just go somewhere, last slide, I think, last. Yeah, that one, that chair route only. That one, that route, and the chedi irundhadulappa. Here, chayakarar, dyers, அது வந்து அவங்க எல்லாம் அந்த somewhere near washerman. I think I didn't pull out that.
இல்ல அந்த பார்ட் இதுல.
Yeah. I never got into the community, even in Tamil Nadu when I was researching or in India, I never got into the community who did the, most, I appreciated the, sometimes the work you do, occupation, you get the name, Chayakarar or Eluthukarar or Tarikarar. I never went into the caste beyond that. And but that information, thank you so much, and I'll definitely look into it, and that's a good lead. And that conversation with you the other day was, you made my day. And you gave me hope also. Thank you so much. It's very interesting because this chai ware, the water content is, the quality of the water is so important. In one of the reference we see the delta, Krishna delta, the water was rich in calcium and it gave a deeper red. And we had the Mark last a few months back when he was here. We are planning to come out with a volume on particularly this Che. According to him, you see a beautiful textile. For me, I see a community which was suffering. I see there is pain. I see there is so much, the perspective, and it is so very important. I feel that has to come out. And so we had a discussion, and if that is the aspect, and when he went to Sri Lanka, he said, you know what, Bessie, I found there is where the dyeing happens, the water, you just cannot taste it because it is so hard and rich in calcium. And now we have an answer. Maybe we should, take this forward. And we were supposed to do it, and somehow it got delayed. Maybe next year we'll continue that research. Yeah.
So thank you all, thank you ma'am, and thanks for the questions and the very interesting lead about Nallur. Recently we've been seeing a lot about Nallur after the Murugan Temple Utsavam, which went around online, but there is so much more to what we see. So thanks for the lead, and thank you ma'am, and thanks to should I say Alaigalal, which made all of us come together. And I would like to finish with a line which ma'am started when she entered. Namba ivlo dooram kadayadu. We are not this far as it seems. Thank you.
Thank you.